Now we come to our last archetype in this series, which should be earth and water. Indeed it is. So earth and water is our last archetype here, and this is an archetype which is known as Mother Nature, or sometimes as Mother Earth, in the pattern of archetypes which was delineated by Tamo and his co-workers. So that's what we're dealing with next. Now, this is a primordial archetype, a deeply healing archetype in a lot of ways. It's the archetype of nature, of untouched nature, of our purely organic selves, of the self which is rooted in the body, physical reality, and physical living, physical processes. If you go through any kind of traumas, this is a fantastic energy for healing and for soothing and calming things. It's a very soothing archetype. It's a nourishing archetype. It's a healing archetype. Yeah, that's one side of it. Yeah, it also is an archetype which has a destructive side to it. It's the archetype which is almost like an archetype of of death in some respects, in that everything that lives dies. Yeah, and so it has this cyclical, mortal, almost fatal quality to it. Yeah, but it is itself full of this extraordinary life and this capacity to give life as well, to regenerate and recycle and regenerate. Yeah, so it's an extraordinary archetype in that sense. Yeah. It's certainly one of the archetypes that we depend upon for life at all. We really need this for basic health. We need it for birth and rearing of children, and for looking after each other, and for nourishing, and for raising, and for allowing the development of this profusion of life to take place. Yeah. As I said, it's a very primordial archetype. When we look to things like fairy tale, it's funny because seeing exactly this archetype in fairy tale I don't always find that easy, in that we see some of it. Like, for instance, we see figures like Baba Yaga, yeah, these ancient primordial witch figures, yeah, and we see her crop up in the story of Hansel and Gretel, and we see many things. A lot of these have a bit of a negative twist to them, because people were, I think, very aware of just how threatening nature could be. This was a power which gave and sustained all life, but it could also bury life as well. It could also kill and destroy, and that was very much part of it. This is not the kind of the New Age, so everything's so lovely kind of Gaian myth. Yeah, Mother Nature, bountiful, yes, but also killing and destructive, smothering, decomposing. Yeah, and you have to remember, people used to give sacrifices to this goddess. So the earth and nature and this web of life, it and her have common roots. Yeah, and they are what they are. Yeah, So we see that in things like these fairy tales, where this rather ancient figure who you could confuse with a matriarch, and it kind of partly is a bit matriarch, but you can tell when it gets really, really witchy, there's too much water in that there for the matriarch, because you have to remember, earth and water. Earth is her outer aspect, water is her informing inner aspect, So you see her in these deep, dark places, the swamps and the marshes, as well as the forests, the deep, dense forests, where the canopies close over and make everything dark. That's where she is too. She's quite an archetype. In mythology, or rather in fairy tales, sometimes she is these old figures because this is an ancient force. In fact, she doesn't need to be ancient though. She's also in this witchiness, but it's a very, very practical, earthy, herby, leafy witchcraft that she has. So we see her there. We see her in various forms in mythology. Her figure, we can see her in Cybele. We see her in Ceres, this grain goddess, and Demeter. We can see her in Tellus, the Roman earth goddess. We see her in Gaia, the Greek earth goddess. We see her in all these, and we can see her in a way summarized in the tarot in the Empress card. But she is a very, very deep, dark archetype. We see her, if we look to prehistoric times, we see these, what we often take to be earth goddesses, these figurines, these nameless figurines that we find in prehistory. We find them over and over again, these figurines. We see these accentuated female figurines. And this also is probably linked to her in this way. So it's very easy to project backwards onto these things and call these things various things, and people just tend to call it the goddess. Not a term I'm that fond of, because I tend to see it as a bit of a reverse engineering of monotheism backwards onto something that we don't really know and can't be sure of. So I'm not keen on that term, but it's the term that people have come up with. So long as you understand that it's something that we're making up, and it's probably a lot of projection in that, well, okay. But the thing is, this figure is there, this power is there, this deep, fertile, life-giving, life-taking power is there. And so we see these figurines, and this also is part of the roots of this archetype, I think. Now, as I said, this is a very healing archetype. If you've been through trauma, it's very, very helpful. This is what will soothe you, ground you, make it possible to grow back again. After what are, terrible things, the sort of terrible things that happen to people. This archetype lets people rest, recuperate, grow back into new life, so that new shoots can come forth again and new life come. So this is part of her. Now, if this archetype gets stuck in our lives, because obviously in our everyday lives we see this in all sorts of things, where we look after our pets or our children, where we cook and do all sorts of things. Focus on the small things in life which give life to life. If she gets stuck, though, then we find ourselves in an overly sleepy, switched-off state. A state where things just accumulate, and so long as things stand up and keep going, we just let them keep going, and whether it's for good or bad, we just let them keep going and accumulating and accumulating, and we don't move, and we just kind of become part of our own furniture. Basically, we kind of sink into I wouldn't call it a ground of being. We just kind of sink into a place where we have made our nest, and we protect that nest by weaving it around ourselves, and we stay there. And we kind of lose time, basically. We sink into this place which kind of inexorably takes us nearer to the other world. But of course it's not a healthy state. So that's when it's blocked. But unblocked, it's a lovely consciousness. It's a consciousness that gives life, that heals, that helps, that keeps all the things going that, like, you know, that you need to be kept going for life to continue, and that looks after stuff, and that is really, yes, just very nurturing, healing, and has an inner light to it, its own kind of light, it has, which is very different to the light of reason or the light of the sun. But it has its own kind of light, deep in its cave. At its shrine, there is its own kind of light. So Mother Nature keeps all things going, and in, I think, a very important sense, it's one of the very big antidotes to the dysfunctional spirit of our age, which is so rooted in a kind of negative airiness, technology, innovation, because the other thing is this archetype is slow, and it slows everything down. And that's kind of a lot of what we probably need to do, in fact. So this archetype has a lot of answers in it to how we live nowadays. It slows everything down. It says, let's just heal things. Let's repair things. Let's not just go through this throwing everything out, getting something new. No, this is a repairing archetype. It's an archetype which repairs that which is damaged, because it's going to use everything. So, and it's going to do it with an instinctive skill. So it does have a lot of the answers, I think, to the sort of consciousness that dominates our lives. It has its own answers, and its own answers are old. They haven't changed in tens of thousands of years. This is the primordial archetype, a primordial archetype. It is nature, and it is essentially nature as it was before we came here, before human beings existed, and it will be nature after we have passed away. This is the primordial earth, and in it is part of our primordial nature. So that's Mother Nature, and with this I close this introductory series.